Good day everyone. My subject for today is military correspondence. Before we proceed to my presentation, let me introduce myself first. I am Corporal Dennis A. Marero, 909-303 Infantry Philippine Army, designated as the Operation NCO of 105th CDC. Military schoolings as shown. Class rules. Switch your mobile phone to silent mode. In case of emergency, please remain calm and take the exit doors. You can perform stretching exercise at the back if you feel drowsy. If there's any question, just raise your hand and I acknowledge you. Safety consideration. Be aware of the cables and wires on the floor and walls to avoid tripping or related accident. In case of earthquake, execute drop, cover, and hold procedure. Then evacuate through the exit when told to do so. In case of fire, do not panic or shout. Remain calm and exit the classroom. Objective: to learn the basic requirements in preparing the military correspondence. The scope of my presentation: definition of terms, characteristic of correspondence, and types of military correspondence.
Writing is one of the most valued skills in almost any career you choose. As a college graduate, it will be assumed that you have a high level of writing proficiency. You most certainly will be doing a great deal of writing in college, but the writing will be very different than any you may have done in the military. The best way to understand the difference in writing in the military versus college is to first understand why you write in each one of these organizations. Let's start with the military. The reason you write in the military is for one reason only, because it somehow contributes to mission accomplishment. This could be writing things such as evaluations, after-action reports, intelligence briefs, etc. All of these things contribute to mission accomplishment in some way. Now, the reason you write in college is actually to become a better writer. By learning to effectively articulate whatever point you are trying to get across, you become a more polished writer. College assignments will consist of creative writing, thought pieces, or most famously the research paper. Understanding these key differences will help you to unlearn military writing practices because you simply won't use them in college. Let's take a look at how they differ more closely. Multi-authored versus single-authored. In the military, you most often wrote your piece and then it moved up the chain of command with improvements being added at each step. By the time a final copy was produced, there had actually been many authors involved. In college, however, you are the only author of your papers, and therefore you have to include these improvement steps on your own. Uniform and tone. In the military, we lived in a world of uniforms, and if you haven't noticed yet, uniformity shows up in our writing. We wrote in a very monotone manner, and we often wrote in a third person. For example, if you were writing for your commanding officer, you wrote in a voice that represented leadership, not a voice that represented you. This is effective in the military because uniform writing means that the reader can move through the material much quicker. Remember, our goal in the military is quick mission accomplishment, and therefore we don't want to waste a single second of the reader's time. Now in college, you don't need to worry about the reader's time. Trust me, your professor has plenty. Instead, it's your voice that matters most. You absolutely want to write in a style that represents your unique tone and not someone else's. In fact, whether it's a research paper or a creative writing assignment, it's your voice and your tone that's most important, and this greatly affects your grade. Conclusions versus thought development. Remember I said that mission accomplishment is the most important thing in the military? Because of this, we often wrote in bullet points and we provided conclusions only. Leaders have the job of making decisions, and they need just enough information to make that decision and not a single word more. Now in college, it's the opposite. Conclusions matter far less than your own analysis. Your thought process and your ability to support your conclusions with evidence, opinions, and logic is far more important than what your actual conclusion is. We'll do an example of this process in a future lesson, but for now realize that the style of writing that you learned in the military needs to be left there. You no longer have to worry about time-sensitive uniformed writing. You will now write in the first person, and it's your style and your voice and your opinions. These are your new writing weapons. This is a much more fun form of writing, and I think you're really going to enjoy this change a great deal, so have fun with it.
Correspondence is a written communication that transmits information, ideas, attitude from one person to another. It has a twofold purpose: to convey information and to build goodwill. From the given definition, correspondence is a written form of communication which has two purposes: to convey information and to foster goodwill to its intended reader. In this form of communication, the writer primarily intends to transmit information, and in the process, he/she also tries to build harmonious relationship with his leader. Military correspondence, a military communication that concerns almost every subject, composed mostly of letters, endorsement, and messages. The AFP, like any military establishment throughout the world, transacts most of its business through correspondence, which thereafter become the written record of all its transactions. Through military correspondence, even the smallest tactical unit in the AFP chain of command and assigned in a far-flung area can communicate with its immediate of higher headquarters. Characteristic of correspondence: accuracy. Figures cited in a letter must be factual. Correspondence must be correct in giving information, in placing the mechanic part, in spelling words, in arranging words, and in deuterance grouping them together. Correspondence, therefore, employ accuracy, completeness, and coherence. The information that you want to convey must be true and precise. Brevity. Letter must be brief, keep short as possible, but must contain important details prepared in logical order, leaving no suspense for the mind to imagine. Brevity, in other words, is conciseness, means condensed, short, brief, as Webster says. It is saying much in fewer words. Be specific your thoughts, must direct to the point. Only essential information is included. Do not make a paragraph when you can say it in a sentence. Clarity is the clearness of language which denote easy understanding. Words are simple and common to the reader. Technical words for ordinary readers is those having limited exposure on the ounce of the language are difficult to comprehend. Use simple and plain words. The words are exact and well chosen. Dignity. A letter must command respect and should reflect authority. It reveals the friendly character of the writer, who considers the one reader is different from one another. The writer treats the receiver of his letter on things that interest and please the letter, who becomes prepared on what is to follow without being hostile at the start. All letters, whether military or non-military, should possess refinement of expression. To be refined is to be courteous. Policies pertaining to communication. It is also very essential to identify the policies pertaining to communications which serve as a guide. Number 1. Personal contact or through telephone, email, and fax mail. Number 2. Mail is preferable than electrical means by way of telephone, long-distance call, and radios. Number 3. Direct communication. Headquarters of major services, major commands, or separate units are encouraged to communicate directly with agencies of General Headquarters AFP on subject matters concerning solely to activities of the headquarters. Number 4. Routing through channels. It is the routing of communication through commands. Agencies or office expected to exercise control, take action, or be concerned with the subject matter. Number 5. Prompt reply. A communication should be answered promptly. In the case of unusual delay, an acknowledgement should be made to include the date when the reply was forwarded. Number 6. 2 copies are prepared. One copy accompanies the original and the other is kept for file. Now, I will be discussing to you the types of correspondence. We have the formal and informal correspondence. Types of correspondence. Number 1. Formal correspondence. Letter A. Letter, military, and non-military. Military letters is used for communication between and or among personnel of the AFP. Non-military letter is used for communication with civilian government agencies and private initiates. Letter B. Endorsement letter is a reply forwarding statement added to military letter, as contrasted with the separate reply. It becomes an integral part of the correspondence and is not withdrawn from the basic communication to which they are appended. If there are enough space at letter, the endorsement is written or begun there. When the space is not sufficient to include the address in at least 2 lines of the body, endorsement is begun on a separate sheet of plain bond paper. It is never typed on the back page. An original and normally 2 copies of each endorsement are prepared. Number 2. Informal correspondence. Letter A. Disposition forms, summary, DF. Disposition form is an informal communication used between staff agencies within command headquarters. It has varied purposes: to give instruction, to transmit order, policy, advice or information, to request action, instruction, policy, opinion and trace action, or check or follow up implementation of orders. Summary disposition form. This is called a staff disposition form, purposely written to ask for an approval and secure the signature of the commander. As for it differs from any ordinary DF because of some additional item. For instance, the SDF has occurrence line where the initiating staff officer sign his name in full in the first line, while the others who are occurring may just initial. These lines are typed or stamped at the upper right-hand corner of the SDF. Letter B. Routing slip. An informal type of communication used to transmit official papers from one office to another within the headquarters. Letter C. Radio message, fax message is an informal communication sent through wire services to facilitate action on a certain matter. Number 3. Miscellaneous. Letter A. Minutes of conference. Letter B. Staff studies. Letter C. Briefing notes. Letter D. After conference report. Letter E. Memorandum. Memorandum are used in lieu of bulletin and circulars. It is the prescribed publication pertaining to matters that are directive, advisory, or informative in nature, the effectivity of which may either be temporary or permanent in duration. Number 1. Military letter. Subject to letter. To be used when communicating with major service and other units of the AFP. It is the accepted format in corresponding with other commands both on and off the post. Addressed to the commander of higher headquarters or to the subordinate units. Style should be dignified, direct, and accurate. Nicknames should be avoided. The tone should be dignified and polite. Size of the paper, A4, 8.27 by 11.69. Position, top 3/4 inch from the top edge of the paper. Top, second and succeeding page, 1 1/4 inch from the top edge of the paper. Left, 1 1/4 inch. Right, 3/4 inch. And bottom, 1 1/4 inch. This is the sample format of military letter. Next is the three main parts of a letter. Number 1. Heading. Letterhead. Normally consists of 3 lines. General Headquarters, Armed Forces of the Philippines is written in capital letters. Name of the initiating command, office, installation or unit, which is in small letters when printed, and address of initiating organization, that is in small letters. File reference. Place on the left margin 2 spaces below letterhead in line with the date. It consists of the office symbol of the originating staff. Date in order of day, month, and year. Note: when stamps are used, the date is not entered until the letter is signed. Subject: it should be written in a few words and as much as possible not to exceed 10 words. Example: request for block of AFP serial numbers. Channels: through and to begin on the fourth line below the preceding item. It is used when the correspondence is routed to an intermediate command, agency, or office. Example: subject: academic records. True: commandant, Army Command and Staff School, Port Andres Bonifacio, Metro Manila. 2. Commander, Training and Doctrine Command, Philippine Army, Camp O'Donnell, Capas Tarlac. Address: place at left margin on the fourth line below the last word of the subject. It is addressed to the commanding general, commander, commanding officer, or head of agency or chief of office. Example: to commanding general, Philippine Air Force, Villamor Air Base, Pasay City. Multiple address. To speed routing, correspondence may be addressed to the individual either by reference to his/her name or by the use of an office symbol. Example: to commanding general, Philippine Army, Port Andres Bonifacio, Metro Manila. Attention: Colonel Edmundo A. Pangilinan, General Staff Corps, Infantry, Philippine Army, Assistant Chief of Staff for Personnel, G1. Identifying information. On the second and each succeeding page, the file reference and subject are typed beginning at the left margin. The date is typed 2 spaces to the right of the margin and the text continues to the second line below the identification line. Example: MPMB MPF-Cruz J 2 September 2009. Subject: resignation from the regular force. This is the prescribed format of heading that we use in military. Number 2. Body. Message itself. This is the prescribed format of body that we use in military letter. Number 3. Complementary ending. Letter A. Command or authority line. It is typed in capital letters which begins on the second line below the first letter of the first word of the last line or sentence. Abbreviations are not used. This is the prescribed format of complementary ending that we use in military letter. Types of authority line. Number 1. General officer with command function addressed to his men. Example, by command of General Ibrado. By command of Lieutenant General Bangit. Number 2. If not addressed to a member of his command. Letter A. For the Chief of Staff. Letter B. For the Commanding General. Letter C. For the Commander. Number 3. For an officer below the grade of Brigadier General, addressed to a member of his command. Example, by order of Lieutenant Colonel Ramos. Number 4. If not addressed to a member of his command. Example, for the commanding officer. Number 5. For the head of the section of staff who is addressing an individual in another part of the armed forces. Example, for the staff judge advocate. Letter B. Signature. Number 1. Signature contains the first name, middle initial, and the family name. Number 2. The name is typed, stamped, or printed in capital letters. Number 3. The officer's grade, branch of service, and title. Number 4. Double signature is avoided. Instead, designated individuals may sign their own name and add the word for or F in front of the type name. Placement. The typewritten portion of the signature is in block style and placed 5 lines below the command line or the body. The front letter begins 2 spaces from the center to the right. Form. Block style and open punctuation are used. This means placing the first letter of the grade and title directly under the typewritten signature. Abbreviation of the grade, arm of service, and the title may be used except colonel and above. Examples of signature block. Letter A, HPA level. 1A de la Cruz, Colonel, Infantry, GSC, Philippine Army, Commanding Officer. GSC eligible and holding the position of Commanding Officer. 1A de la Cruz, Colonel, GSC, Infantry, Philippine Army. Assistant Chief of Staff for Operation G3. GSC eligible and holding the position of G-Staff, Special, Technical, and Personal Staff. Letter B, GHQ level of the Chief of Staff, AFP. Victor S. Ibrado, General, AFP, Chief of Staff. Of the Adjutant General, Ramona Pigo, Colonel, Philippine Army, GSC, the Adjutant General. Letter C, of the Commanding General, Commander of Major Service, Area Command, Specified Command, Brigade, Infantry Division, and Philippine Air Force and Philippine Navy equivalent. Letter D, of a staff officer as head of office or staff major service, Area Command, Specified Command, Brigade, Infantry Division, and Philippine Air Force and Philippine Navy equivalent, and AFP WSSU. Colonel, Philippine Army, the Quartermaster General, AFP. Colonel, Philippine Army, Commanding Officer, AFP, Finance Center. Lieutenant Colonel, Philippine Army, Army Adjutant. Letter E, of a staff officer not as head of the office, Major, Philippine Army, Assistant Adjutant General. Letter F, of an officer in specific capacity. Major, Philippine Army, Survey Officer. Captain, Philippine Air Force, Member, Slant Recorder. Non-military letter, civilian letter, to be used when communicating with entities outside the AFP. Number 2. Endorsement letter. Endorsement. An endorsement is a reply or a forwarding statement added to military letter. Endorsement show facts relative to a definite case stated in the basic letter. Endorsements are numbered consecutively starting with first. Contents. Like the military letter, an endorsement consists of the heading, the body, and clause. Letter A. Heading. Suspense date. Use a suspense date if a reply is needed by a certain date. Do not impose a suspense date when there is no compelling reason. Number 2. File reference. The first line of the file reference begins at the left margin on the line below the suspense date. Number 3. Number. This placed in the center of the page on the same line as the first line of the file reference. Number 4. Identification of writer. The bold initials of the writer followed by. Number 5. Subject. The subject is placed right below the first line starting on the left-hand margin. If the endorsement begins on a new page, the subject begins at the left margin of the line following directly below the file reference and appears only once on a page. Number 6. Designation of originating office. The official designation and address of headquarters or office from which the endorsement is dispatched. Begin at the left margin, separated 2 spaces from the preceding material. Continuation lines follow the block style beginning under the first letter of the designation of the originating office. Number 7. Date. The date of the endorsement is placed on the same line as the official designation and address of the headquarters from which the correspondence is dispatched. Number 8. Designation of addressee. The official designation and address of the recipient is preceded by word to, which begins at the left margin on the second line below the headquarters of origin and date, or true, address, if used. Brief address may be used when appropriate, and attention lines follow the block style beginning under the first letter of recipient's designation. Letter B. Body and clause. The body and clause of an endorsement are prepared in the same way as the military letter. The body begins on the second line below the heading. This is the sample format of endorsement letter that we use in military. Number 3. Disposition form is used in informal correspondence among staff section of the headquarters with corresponding or counterpart staff section of subordinate units. It is not transmitted by GHQ agencies to AFP field commands and units. Uses. The DF is used for the following purposes. Number 1. To give instruction. Number 2. To transmit the orders, policy, advice of information. Number 3. To request action, instruction, policy, opinion. Number 4. To trace action object or follow-up implementation of orders. Number 5. To record comment, coordination, and recommendation, including a brief summary when action recommended is prepared for approval and signature of a higher commander. Contents. Number 1. Comment number. Each separate statement or reply on a DF is known as a comment, and they are numbered consecutively starting with number 1. Number 2. Security classification. This is marked or stamped, not typed on the space provided at the top and bottom of the form at the top and bottom of succeeding pages. Number 3. File number. The file reference is written on the space provided. Number 4. Subject. Stated as briefly as possible. Number 5. Addressee. It is entered after 2. It is addressed to commanding officer or head of an office or unit by his title. The addressee is followed by a true or to. Number 6. Addressor. The title of the addressor is entered after from. Authorized abbreviation is used. Number 7. Date. It is written in the space provided. A DF or summary DF prepared for signature of the command. Chief of Staff AFP is not dated until after it is signed. In this case, SJS or his equivalent in major service stamps the date before dispatching the DF. Number 8. Identification of the writer. The grade or title of the writer, typist initials, and the telephone number are placed on the line below the printed word comment. Number 9. Body. The substance of the comment begins on the second line below the last line of the grading. Paragraphs are numbered and intended like those of a military letter. Number 10. Signature. Only the last name of the addressor is typed, printed or above the type name. Number 11. Enclosure. Same as that in the military letter. This is the sample format of disposition form that we use in military. Summary Disposition Form, SDF. It is a staff paper used to secure the commander's approval of recommended action. It is prepared on a DF form and follows the basic rules in the preparation of a DF. Section of the body of Summary Disposition Form. Letter A. Summary. The summary may include number 1. A synopsis of the basic request. Number 2. A statement of the problem. Number 3. The facts or background of the subject and or. Number 4. A concise discussion of action taken to include pertinent laws, regulation or precedent. Informative Disposition Form. It is a staff communication used to inform and appreciate the message contained in the DF by the addressee. It will only contain at least 3 paragraphs. Letter A. First paragraph will be the reference to the basic request or directive, or the reason or background why the DF is made. Letter B. Succeeding paragraphs will contain clear and concise information regarding pertinent action or actions taken. Letter C. Last paragraph will contain the praise for the information and appreciation of the higher commander of the AFP.
Now we will go over the common mistakes when writing a military correspondence. Make sure to align sentences properly. Make sure to check typographical and grammatical errors. Amounts in figures should be in bold with the PHP sign and close in open and close parentheses. Amounts in words are in all caps and not bold. Centavos are written in a ratio form. There is no space between currency and the amount. Header and footer should be in proper format. The words disposition form are to be the only words that should be written in the upper left box of the DF in Arial 24, all caps, bold. On the use of figures and numbers, the numbers 1 to 10 must be spelled out. Additionally, enclose its numeric form in an open and closed parenthesis. Numbers 11 and above are written in numeric form, and compound numbers have a hyphen or dash except when it starts the sentence. That's when it should be spelled out. Officer names mentioned in the body must be in bold text and all caps. In case there are many names mentioned in the body, only the most senior officer's name will be in bold. This rule does not apply to names placed inside tables. For items in the notation and for approval, items for signature should not be included. It should be in a separate number. There should be no comma after the rank of the signatories. Use DF for communication intended for information and SDF for communication seeking approval. That covers all the common mistakes in military correspondences. For more information, visit the link below and learn more.
Routing slip. Purposes. Number 1. To transmit papers from office to office, within headquarters or between section within office. Note: it is never used to forward papers to an agency outside of a headquarters. Number 2. Used to speed of transmittal correspondence, direct to action section without using the DF or formal endorsement. Number 3. For inter-office routing in headquarters for the purpose indicated by the remarks printed on the form. It may contain comments not intended to be forwarded beyond the addressee on the slip. Note: since the routing slip is ordinarily not filled, it is never used for approvals, disapprovals, concurrence, and other important comments. Even though brief, the type of action is placed either in the basic paper itself or on a DF. Priority cases. Ordinarily, plain white routing slip is used, but red slip is used when demanding immediate action. A red routing slip indicates that the paper to which it is attached must be given priority. This is the sample format of routing slip that we use in military. Radio message. Definition. A message is a thought or idea expressed in brief, in plain or secret language, and prepared in a form suitable for transmission by any means of communication. Parts of the message. Letter A. Heading. Number 1. Precedence message category. Number 2. Date, time, group. Number 3. Originator. Number 4. Addressee. Example. Priority. 30-0800 hours, August 2009. From Commanding General, 2nd Infantry Division, Philippine Army. 2. Commanding Officer, 22nd IB, 2nd Infantry Division, Philippine Army. Letter B. Body or the text. Number 1. Internal instruction. The first word or group of the message instruction is the security classification. The second group is the originator's reference number or the site number. Example, security class, originator reference number, date, month, number of message, and last, year. Number 2, body. This contains the thought or idea which the originator wishes to express. It is considered as the major portion of the message. Letter C, ending. Number 1, drafter, the person who composes a message. Number 2, releaser or releasing officer, the person who may authorize transmission of the message. Guides in the preparation of the message. Letter A, abbreviations. Use only authorized abbreviations. Letter B, punctuation. Use punctuation only when needed. Use only punctuation like or which are available in the typewriter or PC. Letter C, brevity. Text should be clear, accurate, and brief. Conjunction, preposition, and articles should be eliminated unless essential to the meaning. Letter D, paragraphing. Paragraphs will be indented and numbered as in regular correspondence. Letter E, number and fractions. Numbers and fractions will be written as digits. Example, Roman number 9 will be written as Roman 9. 1/2 as 1/2. Letter F, time. Example, 1100 hours, October 2009. From Headquarters, Corps of Engineer Department. 2. Corps of Engineer and CO Basic Corps Students. Control number CED 1109-0109. Papa Delta. You are directed to file your weekend pass and enjoy said privilege after completion of the common module phase of the course. Papa Delta. For info and guidance, Papa Delta End. Alfredo Espadilla, Technical Sergeant, Signal Corps, Philippine Army. Course NCO, Drafter. Neil T. Mariano, Major, Signal Corps, Philippine Army, Headquarters, Corps of Engineer Department, Releasing Officer. Originators or drafters' responsibilities. Letter A, determine the necessity of the message. Letter B, determine the addressee and type of the message. Letter C, use the prescribed message form. Letter D, draft message text in accordance with regulations. Letter E, determine the security classifications. Letter F, determine precedence category. Letter G, ensure authentication. Letter H, forward the message to appropriate transmitting agency. Message precedence category. Letter A, flash. Letter Z, reserved for initial enemy contact report, operational or combat message, 10 minutes. Letter B, immediate. Letter O, reserved for message relating to situation which gravely affect the security of national forces, populace, and which required immediate delivery to the addressee, 30 minutes to 1 hour. Letter C, priority. Letter P, reserved for message requiring expeditious action by the addressee or furnish essential information for the conduct of operation in progress when lower precedence will not suffice, 1 to 6 hours. Letter D, routine. Letter R, reserved for all types of message that justify transmission by the rapid means unless sufficient urgency to require a higher precedence. Security classification. Letter A. Unclassified. Routinary messages that do not contain information which when disclosed to unauthorized personnel will not be detrimental to the interests and security of the nation. Letter B. Classified are categorized into four, depending on the importance of the information and its text. Four categories of classified message. Number 1. Top secret. The unauthorized disclosure of which would cause exceptionally grave damage to the nation, politically, economically, or from security aspect. Number 2. Secret. The unauthorized disclosure of which would endanger national security, cause serious injury to the interests and prestige of the nation, would be of great advantage to a foreign nation. Number 3. Confidential. The unauthorized disclosure of which will not endanger national security but will cause administrative embarrassment, unwanted injury to individual and be of advantage to foreign nation. Number 4. Restricted. Military information not given higher security classification but not intended for general dissemination to the public. That's all for my presentation. Thank you and good day.